Welcome to Transplants, a podcast featuring conversations with women thriving in new roots abroad. I'm your host, Laura Perucci, a Brazilian journalist calling NYC home for over a decade. Each episode, we unpack the transitions, culture shocks, setbacks, and joys of starting a new life in another country, so you can learn from their insights and make your own bold move. Because I truly believe real stories are the strongest way to spark real growth. Hi, and welcome back. My guest today is Karen Bussen. She was born in Ohio and always dreamed about moving to New York City, and eventually she did it. She spent more than 20 years living in the Big Apple and building a creative career. And at some point, she thought that she would live in the city forever. But Karen had another love, a love for Paris and for the French language. And in one of her trips to the French capital, she found a new kind of love, a love that changed everything. She met someone, she got married, and she built a new life in Paris. In this episode, she shares how she put herself out there, how she embraced change, and how she built this beautiful chapter in France. So let's hear Karen's transplant story. So, hi, Karen. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Merci beaucoup.
Mais avec grand plaisir.
So, you are from Ohio. And prior to moving to France, you lived in New York City for 20 years.
More than 20.
True New Yorker. More than 20. Okay. So how was life in the Big Apple? And can you tell us a little bit about that?
I am from Ohio, from a small town in Ohio. And I always knew since about the age of 7 or 8 that I was going to move to New York. I'm not sure why, because no one ever planted that in my head. We had no family or friends anywhere near that area. But I just had it in my head. I'm moving to New York. That's my home. I know it. So I was always on a plan to move there. And yes, I absolutely love New York. And the fact that I do not live in New York right now came as a complete surprise to me, honestly. Like I thought that I would be there forever. I was there forever. I was there for... I mean, I hate to bring this up, but I was there for 9/11. I was there for Superstorm Sandy. I was there for all the blackouts. I was there for pretty much the entirety of the pandemic. And I thought I would die there for sure. My life was pretty great. I mean, up until, the pandemic was obviously difficult. But I think even then I had, at the time I had a startup that I was working on. So it was pretty easy for me to be with my remote team, just working 16 hours a day from my apartment. And then I would go out for a run in Prospect Park or something like that. When I arrived in New York a long, long time ago, I know people tell this story, but I arrived with not a single emergency phone number. I did not know one person. I had 0 connections, contacts. I had no university education.
Oh, so you moved before anything, to literally start your life.
Yeah.
Adult
I had been
life.
working for a couple of years because I started working really young, even before getting out of high school. And but I had only about $300 with me. And I lived in a little women's residence that was run by the Ladies Christian Union. Very simple lifestyle, So I can honestly say that I'm one of those people who can say, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. I did. It took a long time, and it was not a straight path. Yeah, I was able to hang there with the New Yorkers and make a really successful life.
So I think we got a picture, we've been living here forever, and you thought you would live here forever, and you found a great work-life balance here in New York as well.
Yeah.
So I would love to talk about your connection with France and the French language, because when we learn about your story, and it's so funny because you say, I thought you would die in New York, but it feels like you were preparing yourself for this move. And you didn't even know it would happen, consider that connection. I wonder if you ever thought about living abroad, or it was just like a dream, that thing that you just think, but you don't even plan, because those kind of dreams.
It's kind of in parallel to the New York thing. I was just in love with the idea of France from probably when I was about 11, when I was in school and we had to choose a foreign language to study. It was part of your curriculum. And we could choose Spanish, French, German, or Latin. It was just like 150% French for me, like from day one. And I was just like all in. I loved it so much. Every bit of it. I loved it. And then the problem was that after I got out of high school, I had no one to speak with. I had no friends who were French. My family certainly is not French. And so I really just kind of lost it. Even though I traveled extensively as a very young person because I was a magician's assistant on a cruise ship right
That's
after I
so
got out of
cool.
high school. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I traveled a lot, but I think I always thought that I would end up maybe in France for at least like I would have an apartment there. It was always kind of like that'll happen later. But I did think of that. And then I think it was 2015, I was in France just for a few days. And I remember thinking, I can still understand like some of what people are saying to me, but I couldn't speak. I really couldn't speak. And I said, you know what, Karen, it was always your dream. It was always your dream to be fluent in French. You said you were going to do that, and you've got to do it. Applied myself to getting a teacher and starting to take some classes. And I would do the same thing you mentioned to me before we started recording that you had been in France for a class for a month. That's
Mhm.
what I started doing. I started coming to France for a month here and there, a couple times a year, and then taking classes in New York as well. And I hired an online teacher, and I set myself this wacky goal of getting my French like advanced diploma at the C1
The
level.
C1.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I gave myself like a year and a half or something to do that. And I hired this teacher who was an examiner for that. And she like put me through the paces for like 12 weeks or something and 12 exams. Like, like it was horrible. And and then I came to Paris and took the exam. When I passed, I was like, whoa, like, it was one of the happiest days of my life. But the funny story that I always tell is that very day when I found out that I had passed, I literally had a little scarf on and I was like, je parle français. Like I was wandering around the streets of Paris because I was in Paris and I was like, okay, the French government told me that I speak French now, so like I was feeling
I love that.
as we say, j'étais sur un petit nuage. I was on cloud nine. I took myself to a little restaurant and the lady said she was going to prepare my table for me. And while I was waiting there, a guy in the restaurant who was smoking a cigarette and drinking something, he was a little bit tipsy, came outside and started talking to me, And he was just being nice, but I realized a couple of sentences in, I didn't know what he was saying. Like I could not understand that kind of French, like just every ordinary, someone joking around with me. So I went from being like on top of the world to literally feeling like trash in the
Oh.
space of about a minute and a half. And I went back, contacted my teacher, and I was like, what the hell? Like I just got this great thing. And I realized, like, with real French people, I am not up to the level that I need to be. And she's like, all right, well, now that's what we're going to work on now. It's like your street French or your everyday French. And so then I have been working on that ever since. Now I have my French friends and I'm in a musical group here. So I have all the musicians that I talk to and that's like, it's exactly like that. It's like all the time joking around, laughing. What did you say? Like, and it's great.
That has been a journey. Yeah,
Yes.
it's what we were talking about before
Yeah.
record that. It's a journey learning language. It's forever. You've been traveling like back and forth to Paris before moving to Paris for a while. It was maybe not like your second favorite city until you moved there.
Yeah, it definitely was my second favorite city. And I was traveling a lot in the Caribbean and Mexico because my job took me there. And so I would say I was probably doing more travel in that area. And then when I had time, coming to Paris.
Okay. And I tried to find something. There is a saying about that. Every New Yorker secretly dreams about moving to Paris. Have
I
you
never
heard that?
but it's probably true.
I
mean,
heard that.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those cities where the minute that you move here, everyone is either A, jealous of the fact that you moved there, or B, they want to introduce you to someone that they already know there. And there are so many people who are here who have just, I mean, it's the same thing in New York. People are coming from all over the world in New York. And when you meet people who are also from that, that international community, they're very interesting people because they've obviously made this their objective to go to someplace very interesting and they've got a story, So, yeah, I can see that being true, that every New Yorker would go to Paris.
Okay. Let's talk about a little bit about dating in New York City, because I'm very curious to hear your experience, as a single woman in her 50s in the Big Apple, because I have friends that are single and they are not happy. How was it for you? How was the dating scenario for you?
Early on, there was no online dating. There was no apps. None of that was around. And so mainly, I always met my relationships through work. Generally you would just meet someone through work or through friends or something like that. And so I was in a long-term relationship for quite a while. And after that, honestly, I was so busy. I had started my own career, my own business. And a lot of times in the evenings, because I was planning weddings, and in the evenings and on weekends, I was always working. I wasn't always looking for someone. I did have a few relationships along the way. None of them were very successful. I often joke around with my literary agent that I'm going to write a book about that someday, about all the crazy
I saw the cover that you designed it.
Yes, exactly. So, I did have some crazy relationships with guys. Let's put it this way. I was just never very successful in that for whatever reason. And so I pretty much, I don't want to say that I'd given up because I wasn't feeling like, well, poor me, I'll never find a partner, or, oh, geez, feeling that kind of desperation, which I'll be honest, even here, I find in some of my friends, there's just this real electricity around finding a partner. But for me, in my 50s especially, I really was just not into it. I was just I'm having a great life. I do whatever I want. I have no fear about traveling around the world, going to dinner by myself. It's the best time, I'm fine. And I always find people to talk to and stuff to do. So I just didn't have it in my mind.
You're dating yourself.
Kind of. I mean, I'm not saying oh, I like myself better than everyone else. It's just, it wasn't a measuring stick, for me in terms of the success of my life. I think my family kind of saw me that way too. I was just always this kind of free, independent woman who didn't have kids, who was kind of always around to solve everybody's problems and, be there whenever. And yeah, I was off jetting around doing my thing. I didn't have to ask anybody permission to do anything. I had a successful business, There's nothing wrong with my life. And I had a couple of once online dating started, I had a couple of bad experiences with that. And I was just not doing that again, not doing it. So that was kind of where I was
Let's fast forward to 2021. You mentioned that you spent part of the pandemic here and you're having a really hard time just working from home. And the COVID vaccines were here. Some countries starting to open the borders and you couldn't wait anymore. So tell us how you came up with the idea of going to France and what are the original plans. And we will talk about that a little. And I also mentioned that in the introduction, but if you can just give us a better idea of your work, because I know that you're working on your startup and you also work as this wedding planner organizer. Yeah. So just so people don't get lost.
I started originally in the restaurant business, and out of the restaurant business, I created an event design business so I did flowers and decorations and things like that for weddings. That led to my becoming a wedding planner, meaning that I would then do everything for my clients, find the band, find the venue, just anything that was related to choosing the venue.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, but I love that. That was great. And that was something that I ended up doing for a very select, few families every year. So I was doing several very big and fun, interesting events per year. I got approached by a big international hotel company who has a smaller brand. They've got hotels around the world, but a smaller brand in the Caribbean. So in Mexico, Jamaica, and the Dominican Republic. And they asked me to create a destination wedding program for them, creating options for couples who were coming from like mainly Canada and the US and wanted to get married at the beach. And that was a blast. The people I worked with, the friends I made, I mean, the company that I worked with, it was just all such an incredibly great experience. And so I did that for, 13, 14 years. During that time, most of my work was to create these products, these ideas, these experiences for the couples. So I would get to go a couple times a year, say hi to everyone and see what was going on and make little tweaks here and there. And it was an amazing partnership. And also during that time, I mentioned that because that's when I was able to start my other startup. It wasn't like an everyday job that I had with the hotels. It was a project that was ongoing and was very, very successful. And I had gone through a difficult situation with my younger sister who had been very ill with cancer. She's fine now, but she almost died. During that time, it kind of got me thinking about mortality. I ended up creating a startup that was all around how we think about our priorities at the end of our life. This is an essential human experience. It's one of the most important events of our life. We don't talk about it. We don't think about it. I really threw myself into that. And that's what I was working on during the pandemic.
So it kind of like gave you another thing to work on when the pandemic hit, because when the pandemic hit, there was no weddings, no events, nothing, right?
Yes, it was
so good for you.
I mean,
like, at least you.
And it was also something that I started before. I didn't know that that was happening.
Yeah.
In 2019, and but it also turned out to be very helpful for a lot of people, and we were able to, reach out into the community and offer services and things like that, and try to do making like free hotlines that people could follow and stuff like that. And so it was great. I was living in Fort Greene, Brooklyn, in a big, big, big building with like 300 apartments in it, and you couldn't get on the elevator with any other human being. It was a strange.
We didn't know anything, right? We were like, "Oh, should I wash my groceries?
Exactly.
Should I wash my delivery?"
At the time, I didn't hoard toilet paper, but I was hoarding rosé wine in my apartment. Like, okay, I got to make sure, because they were talking about closing down the wine shops, And so over the course of time, I did really start to feel like I have got to get out of here. And I was like, I got to get back to Paris. And so it was spring of 2021. France had opened their borders before, and then they closed them again. And so this was in the period of time when the borders were still closed for the second time. And I said, I don't care. They're going to reopen them. I'm willing this to happen. And I just was like, the flights were cheap. I got a place to stay relatively cheap. And I just booked it. And I was like, this is going to happen. And literally, I mean, it may have been 2 weeks before. It was very close to when I was leaving that they reopened the border.
I think I read on your Substack there was like 1 day.
No, it wasn't 1 day, but it may have been like 1 week.
Maybe
or
I got
two.
it wrong.
Right before.
Yeah.
Before I left, two things happened. One was I had only planned a 4-week stay, and I went out to lunch with one of my friends, and she was like, "Why are you only staying for 4 weeks? Go for 6 weeks. Then you can relax and you can really feel like you're there and you have time to settle in." And I was like, "Okay, maybe I will." And so I decided to do that, and which will be pivotal in the end in terms of what happened. And then the other thing was one of my colleagues at work, who is significantly younger than me and just, a total hoot. She was like, "Karen, you need to get on Bumble when you go to France." And I was like, "Yeah, no, that ship has sailed. I did the online dating thing the first time around. It didn't work out." And she was like, "It's not the same anymore. Everyone is on apps. It's how you meet people." And I was like, "I know, but I just don't feel like I'm even in the market. Like it's not something that motivates me." And she was like, "Well, why don't you think of it this way? Think of it as you can meet French people and speak French. You can practice your French language and have drinks at the same time, like with interesting guys, And I was like, "Oh, well, now that makes it more intriguing to me."
She hit your sweet spot.
Yeah, and she is a marketing genius. So I was like, way to sell it to me. Probably for the first 2 weeks, I didn't do anything. And then I activated it, and I did go on a few dates, and I talk about some of my experiences on my Substack, La Filaneuse, and it was really funny. I didn't meet anyone who was for me, and I was almost 2 weeks out from leaving to go back home. So a month into my stay, I was about to delete the app because I was just like, this is ridiculous. I'm wasting time. I'm in Paris and I'm sitting here going like this, and I'm not meeting anyone. And I remember I just came across this guy, and I looked at him and he was clearly good looking, but his pictures were not very good because he was never taking a picture of himself. He was taking a picture of himself in front of something that he wanted you to see. So it was like him, but he was always like, and I was like, and the last photo of him was a picture that someone else had obviously taken. And he was smiling. Oh, he looks really nice. He looks like
He has potential.
and he's a really nice guy. And I was like, well, I think this guy looks nice. I'll reach out to him. Who cares? And so that ended up being my now husband. All right. We met in Saint-Germain for a drink. It ended up being a 4-hour date. We had 4 dates, 4 nights in a row. The rest is history. We got married, I don't know, 8 months later.
I mean, who would say, right?
You
And
never know what can change.
yeah, you never know. You never know. It's amazing. And you actually wrote a little bit about your experience dating in Paris. And you had concerns and insecurities about your age of being a woman in your 50s. And you thought that would be an issue, but it wasn't.
No, and I would say to any ladies out there who are having any of those same thoughts, my experience and with my friends as well is that it's just a different attitude toward aging in Europe. I honestly thought that any of the guys I would meet would be significantly older than me, and that was not the case in any of the matches that I had. And my husband is 6 months older than me. That's it. So we're the same age basically. But yeah, I was really insecure about that. And I think, that just says a lot about, because I think in the US that would be the case. I don't know, because I hadn't done any dating, in the last, in a long time. But I'm not saying it's never a thing here, but I think it's less of a thing here. Like just since we're talking about dating, if you are in France and you're looking to meet someone, the only tip that I would give is to be honest about, like, now that there's ChatGPT and like translation services, I do know some people who kind of translate themselves into like texting with someone so that they look like they speak a little bit of French, and then you meet someone and you don't really speak French. And then it can be awkward because if the person thought that you did and they don't speak that much English. So you should kind of be honest about like how often are you really in France and do you really speak the language? But
so you're mentioning about the age thing in the United States and dating. I recently read an article from that author of Sex and the City, Candace Bushnell. I never know how to pronounce her last name. And she was talking about her experience as a woman in, I think she's in her 60s. Oh my God, I felt sorry for her.
I haven't read that yet.
Things.
Where is it in the New
It's
York
on
Times?
the New York Magazine.
Magazine. Okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah, I can share the link with you. But yeah, it was very, very different from what you were saying. So I guess you're right about the experience in France compared to the US. She was telling about like these guys that were like older than her and also chasing younger women. Yeah.
I mean, look,
that's not different.
I don't want to generalize too much. I hate doing that, and I don't want to get down on older men or anything like that. Like, and of course, I also think that I did have maybe an unusual experience in that I was on Bumble for all of 2 weeks. Just from what I've heard anecdotally from my friends and my own experience, I would say it is a different game here.
It's so interesting that you mentioned those facts about yourself, that you're happy, you didn't have any problem to go out by yourself, go to a restaurant, doing things for yourself, and if someone comes, that's okay. Like, you always been this independent woman. And I read in one of your posts that you wrote that you're not unhappy alone, and I think that's amazing. And you also wrote that you had escaped a long and unfulfilling relationship with a complete jerk. So that made you made you prioritize to build a beautiful life for yourself. And I think that's beautiful, and especially coming from a woman, because I guess we are we always hear that we have to find someone or we have to rely on someone to be happy, and that's not true. And I really think it's beautiful, this sense of being enough. So do you think that being independent can make us more aware of what we deserve in a relationship?
I mean, listen, I am never going to pretend to be an expert in relationships because
no,
I just really wasn't, at least I won't say I wasn't good at them. I certainly tried very hard from my end, But I don't think I don't know what the reason is, but when I was in relationships when I was younger, I wasn't very good at like listening to myself or guarding, my own identity. As weird as that sounds, like in business, in my work, I'm always very much fully myself. I'm absolutely no problem being direct. But in relationships, I found that that was a much more of a gray area for me, and I didn't succeed really well in many cases. And I will add one other thing, which is even in all my bad relationships, I always look at it. I did not say this. Somebody else said this, but I repeat it. Everything is either a blessing or a lesson. You come away with something from every relationship. And even that complete jerk that I was with, out of my relationship with him, I built my business, at that same time. And so like I learned a lot from him about the way I didn't want to run a business because we worked together and, stuff like that. So I did learn so much from him. But in terms of your actual question, which is about when you are independent, do you think that teaches you what you want? I mean, yes, in a way.
Yeah, what you deserve.
And I think it's also in how I think if you feel truly independent and you do feel truly fulfilled, then it makes you much more maybe reluctant to give that up. Unless it's for the right situation where someone really respects you, wants to be your partner, has that real potential that you can see, because you're like, oh gosh, it's a big deal when even in the best of situations, when you come out of a very independent state of being for a long time, it's like, oh wow, oh gosh, now I got to tell somebody what I'm doing. Even in small ways, I got to find out what color are we going to paint this room. It's not all up to me anymore. And then I think on the other hand, when you have someone coming out of a long-term, serious, committed relationship and then immediately kind of feeling like they want to find another partner, that can be difficult too, because it's like you're vulnerable. Maybe you got to take the time to make sure that you're sort of okay with yourself. So I had a lot of time. And so I think that helped me. And also I think just when it struck me, it was within 10 minutes of meeting him that I was like, whoa, this guy is different, like there's something about him. And I just had not felt that. I don't think I had ever felt that in my life, even with my other long-term relationships. Not like that, where I felt like he was he was very upfront that he wanted someone to love. Like on our first date, he said that. But yeah, I think if you're not thinking about what you should have, you should be doing that. And you should be being as open as you can. I don't mean you should like lay it all out on the table on your first date, but you shouldn't be afraid to tell somebody, even somebody new, because that's the way you see how do they react when you tell them something that they weren't expecting. It's going to come up at some point. Might as well find out early on.
Interesting. I love that.
And you don't have to say it in an aggressive way at all. Just, but like, you should be yourself. Because ultimately, after the glow wears off, you're going to be yourself and they get to find out. So start a little more, be yourself, I think.
Yeah. Nice. I like that advice. And as you mentioned, you worked years as this wedding planner, event designer. And you secretly didn't believe in the institution of marriage. I would love to hear more about that.
Well, I would just like to say in my own defense, I don't think it was all that secret to anyone who knew me. I didn't advertise that to my client. I wasn't like, well, I don't, yeah, sure, get married, but I don't believe in wedding. I believe in love and I believe in celebrating. And that makes me probably a better wedding planner than someone who is just like a hopeless romantic, because I'm also very organized and pragmatic. And, I met so many women as I was planning their weddings who had been dreaming like about their wedding since they were little girls. And some of them had pictures of dresses for years and, like just all this stuff.
And you were dreaming about New York.
Yeah, I just, I think it's great. I just didn't get that gene somehow. So even after I met my husband, my now husband, when we were just, we were dating and we were starting to get very serious about each other. We're talking about like, okay, we'd like to live together and we got to decide if we're going to be in New York or in Europe, in Paris. Even then, it was more about like, we want to be together forever, like we want to be together. But it wasn't, for me, the fact that we got married came as a later part of our discussion. And it had a lot to do for me with that aspect of, I don't want to say giving up my life in New York. At this point in my life where, I just wanted to feel that this was serious, like moving to another country to be with someone, I wasn't going to sell all of my belongings and like close my business and like do all of that if it wasn't really serious. And I also realized that for me, it did just make my life much easier coming in as an immigrant into a new country to have a spouse who is, French. We were not together at the time when we had this discussion. We were on a video call. He was here and I was in New York. And I had talked to a relocation expert about what kind of visa I would need to get and all this stuff. And so I made him a presentation. I told him we could do this or we could do this. And he was like, well, which one is easier? And I was like, well, that depends on if you mean easier administratively or easier emotionally. He said, which one gets you here faster? And so I was like, well, I think it's probably getting married. And he was like, all right, we're going to do that. And I was like, wait, hold on. Are you saying you want to marry me? We got engaged over a video conference. So it was like that. When I arrived in France, he came to the airport with his son and, had the ring and everything like that. So.
Okay. So you're very practical during this process. And I'm wondering if you had like a click. I mean, and you said that during the first date, you felt something that you never felt before. But what made you realize that, okay, maybe this is the guy,
I never had this feeling before in my life, but there was something about him that was different than any guy I had ever met. And, we did have 4 dates, 4 nights in a row, which of course that's only in the course of 1 week. I just felt instantly like myself. He just liked me. He really liked me. And I really liked him. And I think it was clear to both of us, maybe because we are both a little bit older, he had been married before and had been divorced for a long time. And we had both had like long distance relationships and things like that. And I think we saw the beauty in like the potential of what was there. And I think that kind of led us both to be more open. So it was easier to discover, like, I think I really like you, and I think I really like you too. And let's see where this could go. So, okay, I said, for me, it's important to know if this is real. Is this just like a summer fling? So he said, why don't you come back to France? Because I work for myself. I can work really from anywhere. Why don't you come back to France and stay with me? And I said, why don't I come for a month? And we'll just like live together as if, and just we don't have to be doing anything big and dramatic. Let's just see if we really like each other. And that's what we did. Quickly, he made me a little desk in his spare room and I could have my office there. And that's where I'm sitting right now, by the way. It just clicked. It's like, this is the guy. Like, this is the guy. I want to be with him. And then when we finally got engaged, it was just like so magical and romantic. Like, I don't know. I completely was like, I'm getting married. Like, I was totally bridal. I didn't need to be like the princess or like, we planned our wedding in 3 weeks, I think it was. I had only a certain amount of time to be here because I was still on a tourist visa.
Yes, yes.
Only have like, I think it's 90 days every.
Yes.
Days. Yeah. And then I went back to New York and was there for about 6 weeks, closing up shop and like, getting my life wrapped up. And then came here permanently at the very beginning of May in 2022.
So you guys basically skipped all the games and BS that some couples go through sometimes in relationships. You're just like, being open and honest since the beginning was the secret, I guess.
And I mean, I have to give him so much credit because he is someone who is good at communication. When I relate it to my work, I have no problem with dealing with conflicts, like, let's talk about it. Let's deal with this. In a relationship, sometimes I can be a little bit like conflict averse because I just want everyone to be happy, For the most part, I can let a lot of things slide. But he was like, no, we have to talk about like how we're going to deal, like if we have any problems or any issues, whatever. So I was like, oh my God, like no one has ever talked to me like this before, like he wants to talk to me about my problems. It may have also been our stage of life because if you're younger, you're out there on that dating scene, you got your friends, some of them are married, some of them are not, and they're telling you stuff and it's just a different world, so I can't really give advice to younger women except to say that I don't care what age you are, you should very early on be thinking about what is important to you and your true partner.
I agree.
Someone who will be willing. You always have to compromise, of course, but you should not be compromising on your values, just on who you are. Like who you truly are should be able to find a home in that person. And if not, there are others. As we say in French, un de perdu, 10 de retour, or 10 de retrouver. You lose one and find 10 more. If you're not sure and you are, just be sure of yourself first is all I would say.
Yeah,
As
I
sure
would
as you
say
can.
like, just don't accept anything for the afraid of being alone because
Exactly.
you're more important and you deserve better, right?
And the happiest you will ever be is if you can take the time to cultivate a relationship with yourself where being alone with yourself is like an actual pleasure. Like yourself is
Yeah.
good, like, yeah, if you can do that, I mean, you're golden either way. And honestly, I believe that part of my success was just that I wasn't too attached to the outcome in the beginning of that process. You know what I mean? I wasn't expecting anything, low expectations, not low expectations of a guy, but low expectations of an outcome
Of
that would
the
result in like a
mm-hmm,
relationship. And in that
mm-hmm.
way, I was just like, okay, well, open, but not like super attached to like every interaction with every guy.
When you guys decided to pursue this relationship and you had the plans to move, you wrote something that really caught my attention because I know that, like you mentioned before, that people were not expecting that you would get married because you were this person that was always ready to solve everybody's problems. And
Yeah.
you wrote, the experience got me thinking about what it means to make a significant change in your life that requires others to see you differently.
Yes.
Can you unpack this for us?
I think in our lives, almost everyone falls into a kind of role in their family and with their friends. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You are just that one who is like this, the one who got married early and always wanted a family, the one who is very independent and, maybe travels around a lot, but is kind of like always available. Whatever that role is, the peacemaker, the diplomat, whatever you are in your group, over time.
Because people pull you there, not because you said that you were that, right?
But then
you
again,
kind of accept that as well.
I'm guilty of doing that to other people too. Like, I think we all are to a certain extent.
Yes,
I was more
yes.
bad. And I try not to do that now that I'm aware of it. But yeah, especially if you tell somebody not just, hey, I met someone and I'm getting married, which would have been unexpected coming from me anyway, and knowing that I didn't have a great historic success with my relationships, people who love me may have been like concerned about that and been like, oh gosh, I hope she isn't, this was going quickly. I hope she isn't rushing things. And then you tell them, and by the way, I'm also picking up everything,
moving to France,
my business in New York, and moving to France. And everyone knew, it was no secret that I love France. So it wasn't like that. It wasn't like I'm moving somewhere that I never talked about before and it's going to be like, but even just those two things were a lot. Most of my friends were pretty supportive. Like, they were sad that I was going to be moving away. We would see each other less. But in my family, it was much more trepidation. Why are you doing this? Don't you want to wait for a while? Are you sure you want to pick up your business? Why don't you keep your apartment and your business for a while here and just like see what happens and stuff? And I respect that, but it was just like, I really didn't get the support that I wanted. Like oh my God, Karen's getting married. Like, let's throw her bridal shower, whatever. I didn't get any of that, and I mean, from my family. And so it created a pretty big rift, just like, my mom is older and I think she felt like, well, she thought, she doesn't understand that like I can command anything I want from the internet for her. Like I can, she was worried like that, I was going to be like leaving her alone and all that. And of course that I don't want to do that either, but what am I supposed to do? I was like, how long would you like me to wait? At the time, I was 54 years old. I have a chance now. I met the person that I want to marry. I wished, I guess, that I could have had both. Like, okay, a little worried about me, yes, but also super jazzed and excited for your happiness. Ultimately, I knew from the jump that it was not going to impact my decision. No way. Because I have done a lot to prioritize others' happiness and health and safety and all that in my family. And it was my time. It was my time to make a decision for my own happiness. And I don't regret it at all. It's those roles that we are in. And when you suddenly present yourself as someone who maybe isn't 100% of the time exactly that paper cutout that, you've been turned into, then it's difficult for people. And of course, you have to try to meet them halfway and be gentle about it. I would say if anyone's planning a big move or something like that, even if you're not getting married, you're just moving to another country, giving people a little bit of, grace. You are also entitled to some support and excitement. And you know what? Hello, be nice to me. I live in Paris, and I have a spare room.
Yeah, that's true.
Bad move.
But do you think that they were hesitant because this relationship involved this, oh, she's gonna move to another country? Do you think that was like maybe the heavy factor? If this guy was just a guy in New York, do you think they would react that way? Or that moving to another country was the
I think moving to another country was the big kicker
Mhm.
because suddenly a person who has always, I mean, I literally was the person in my family who was like the problem solver. For example, my sister, I mean, she would call me regularly and be like, can you come? Can you help me with this? Can you do that? And I did it happily, gladly, like 100% of the time. And, you know, I think my mom too, just even though she lived in Ohio and I lived in New York, it wasn't like I was seeing her every day anyway. What's really
Yeah.
the difference? But for her, that ocean in between us is like a thing, you know?
But that never made you like stop and say, ooh, should I listen to these people? Should I not go? You were like 100% I'm doing this.
I was worried about making a rash decision because I have a history of like not making super good choices in my relationships. And so did I go and talk to my psychiatrist about it? Yes, I did. I presented everything to her and she was super honest with me and she gave me some advice for asking some questions of myself and my potential new partner, of holding two truths in my head at one time regarding good and bad about, the situation. And so it went quickly, but not without a lot of consideration.
Mhm. You're
what I realized?
protecting yourself.
I
or
realized
trying.
this in having a conversation with my sister where she was like, what are you going to do? Like, if this like falls apart, like what if, yeah, look, it seems great right now, but what if you get over there and you've already picked up everything? And I was like, well, I'll just do exactly what I have always done throughout my life, which is, let's just say the worst case scenario, and I want to move back to New York. I know everyone in New York. I have vast networks in New York. I will move back and get an apartment. I have my own money, but I'll move back to New York. Or I'll stay in Europe and I'll do my thing in Europe. Like, I'll do whatever I do. Obviously, I would like it to last forever. If something happens, I'm not afraid to take care of myself. Not marrying someone for that purpose. I'm marrying him because like I love him and I want him to be my husband, my partner, for fun,
Yeah.
for adventure, for like a life together,
I like the fact that you knew yourself and you knew your past with relationships, and you did everything that you could to make sure that you're not putting yourself in another kind of bad relationships. And
Yeah.
also, I really think that putting everything in perspective, like, okay, what is the worst thing that can happen? Being back to New York? Fine. That's not bad at all, being in New York, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah. I mean, you can be like in love and dreaming about your new life while like being rational as well and studying every scenario. And I think like even if you have if you don't have a relationship and you move to another country, that's a great exercise too. Okay, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Exactly. And what I always tell people, if they're, I meet a lot of people who are thinking about like through my Substack, or even I have a little YouTube channel where I talk about like,
I saw that.
little things about moving to France, and people will say, "Oh, I want to move to France, and I'm thinking about doing that." And my big advice to people, I give two pieces of advice. One is start learning French, because in France, it's not like if you live in Paris, can you get by with only speaking English? Yes, but you're going to live the life of a tourist. All your friends are going to be English speaking. You're going to be in a bubble. If you want to, you can have a perfectly great life doing that, but you got to make that decision that that's the life you want. If you want to fully integrate, you might as well start learning a little bit of French. It will get you a long way. The other is to take some time to really come here, visit places that are not the absolute epicenter of central Paris. Try to go like 50 kilometers away from the Eiffel Tower in some direction. Understand something about French culture, or watch some French TV, get to know what's going on with politics in France, because it will affect you if you live here. And I always suggest that people come for increasingly long periods of time before fully making a move. Now, if you're a young person and you got nothing to lose, you just want to pop over here, and see how it goes, great. I'm actually fully for that. For me, that's what life is all about. You try things, they don't all work out, but they will always teach you something good, or, it will always be good in some way. So I just say, yeah, just take your time in, I was coming to France for years. I didn't know that I was going to end up here like this, but boy, did it help me. And still, honestly, and I talk about this too. It's a struggle from time to time, I find myself still feeling like an outsider, even though I have the absolute best of all possible worlds for being a real insider here, you know? You can never get away from that, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel the same thing, like living in a
Yes.
city, not your
Yeah.
home city.
I think it's the beauty of being an immigrant,
Yeah.
actually, because that's it.
It's a little
That's it.
magical, you know, and everything is,
Yes.
there's always something that's like, oh, I didn't realize they did it like that here. Okay, fine. I'll figure that out. And then sometimes, you know, you feel a little upset about it, feel a little down. You're like, no, you know what? This is gonna work. The longer you keep at it, the better it gets. Absolutely.
Yes.
Any big move, yeah, I don't care. Even if you move to another big city or another town, a small town in the US, I think the main problem for a lot of people who decide they're gonna come here and they think they're gonna live here is they drop in like tourists and they've got, you know, baguette and croissants on the brain, and they think it's going to be Emily in Paris, and it's not. Like, when you live here, it's just like New
Yeah.
York. Very feels that way.
It's
You move
like
to
New York. I was gonna
Not
say
like-
that.
you tourist
It's
New
not
York.
Sex and the City.
Exactly. It's just not. And you have a real life. You got to pay bills. You got to do what you got to do to like stay straight with like tax authorities. You got to get your whatever visa situation set up. Like, these are not fun. So it's a life. It's a You got to go to the doctor. You got to deal with
Yeah.
people from time to time, and a lot of nice people. So it's a life. And I think as long as you kind of go into it knowing that, you'll be great one way or the other, whether you decide. And nothing is forever. If you decide you want to change, or it doesn't have to be, it could be forever, it doesn't have to be. You can decide that you want to make a change again. Even if you just made a change, you can make another change.
I would love to talk more about the things that you did and I used to doing during your first years in Paris. You participated in this all-female panel of wine judges for a global wine spirits competition. You auditioned and you're accepted for this French jazz band.
Yes.
You went to a women's retreat in Provence. And you also did simple things like joining a running club. And this fascinates me because some people, they stopped trying new things. And also because it's another country. I see in my community here, oh, I don't have friends, or they are shy, or they're afraid, insecure of trying new things. And I think that what you are doing, what you've been doing, is a huge inspiration for any woman that is living abroad and feeling lonely. So how did you put yourself out there? Like, and what's your best advice for women that are feeling constrained, living in another country? Because I mean, jazz band, really?
Oh, wait, well, that's off the charts. Okay, that even for me, that was and it wasn't fully anticipated. But I'll answer the question in general. That I have always been a person. I think because of the way I grew up, we moved around a lot, so I'm not afraid of risk taking.
Okay.
And that is probably the greatest gift that my mother ever gave me, unintentionally. But in moving me around so much, I became very flexible and adaptable. My interest in something is greater than my fear of doing it. And so, one thing for me is that I decided when I moved here that I was going to really integrate myself into French society. Of course, I have my fabulous American friends here who I adore and I spend a lot of time with. But I also said it's very important to me to make some French friends, to also be not just in a couple all the time and only meet people through my husband or only do things with him. I want a French life that is also independent of our relationship. It includes him, but I make it, I create it.
Yes.
And so that's why I joined the running club. And of course, I've always loved to run. So that was a natural. And I think another important thing for me is that I chose, now granted, I had a level of French when I moved here, but I chose to do my whole life in French. I do not speak to a French person in English at any time for any reason. Even if I don't know how to say a word or a phrase, I will use the French that I have to explain to them. I made that commitment to myself because otherwise it's too easy to slip that. First of all, I give myself a lot of respect for trying that. And I get a lot of respect from others.
Yeah.
And I screw up a lot, but still, they respect the fight. I'm in there. I'm doing it. The best thing you can do if you are in a foreign country is to find an organized group of people, like an international expat group, or a group if you're from Canada or America or whatever, wherever you're from, find a group of people who are living here. that's not fully integrating yourself into the society, but it's a way, it's a little bridge. And they're going to know a lot of people and they're going to have resources for you. So if you need an immigration lawyer, you can ask that person. You need someone who's going to help you buy an apartment. They know people who sell apartments, and you can also have people to, commiserate with. If you're feeling down, you can talk to them. You can be like, you know what, this sucks today. Like, I'm having a hard time, and they will understand. So I think that's your base. If you're moving someplace like Paris, I guarantee you know people who know people in Paris. You ask them to introduce you to the most interesting people that they know in Paris. And that has been like a game changer for me. I have met people who are just now my very good friends who are incredible women. You follow your interests. People are saying like, oh, how do I meet a guy? How do I meet friends? Whatever. Do something you like to do. Because if you're doing something you like to do, then it doesn't matter. If you meet someone doing it, you've already won. And then probably the other people there who are doing the same thing you like to do, you may have something in common with them,
Yeah.
It is just putting yourself out there. What do you honestly have to lose?
Yeah, exactly.
Here you
Nothing.
are. If you're going to go so far as to move to a foreign country, you can already say that you are a bold and awesome woman. And then let that lead you forward into whatever the hell you want to do. The thing with the jazz band, I did it on a dare to myself. My husband set me up though. He saw me sing at karaoke and he was like, you really sing well. And I was like, okay, I'm not a great singer, but I like to sing, and I told him, yeah, I want to have my own band. And I was joking. And he goes to work as he always does and talks about me with his colleagues. Oh, Karen said she wants to be in a band. And one of his colleagues is like, well, Christian, I'm in a jazz band. So we need a singer. We've been looking for a singer for a while. And he comes home that night and is like, here's your song list. You have to learn. I was like, what? No, I'm not doing this. And I was terrified. And I wrote about that. Like, what do you do when someone presents you with an opportunity to do something you said you want to do?
I love it.
Strong
Look at
enough
this.
to take the challenge, or are you going to be like, no, I was just kidding. I don't really want to do that. And so I forced myself. I was like, I was so close to running away the day that I had to go do my audition. But now look at me. I'm in a band. Like, I'm in a band. I love the guys in my band. They could not be more wonderful. Why would you deny yourself the opportunity to just live how you want to live? Whatever that is, not to be doing something like joining a band.
Yeah.
You want to start painting? Start freaking painting. You don't need a university education to pick up some watercolors and start like messing around with them. Like, why wouldn't you let yourself blossom in whatever direction your heart is like telling you to go? That would be my thing. But definitely get yourself a support network if you're moving to a new country. I don't know if you found that to be true also, but
Yes, for sure. And I guess like you have to when you're not finding things in your support network, just like Google, just try, just like I would try to do this today and see what happens, You never
Exactly.
know.
No, it's so true. I think that's a very good point, is just allow yourself time to like research, get answers. But also don't forget, even if you're in a foreign country, don't forget, like the other day, someone asked me about hiring someone to do a particular project. And I was like, here in France, I don't know who that person is, but you know what? I know everyone in New York who does that. So, because I know that they know someone in Paris who does that. And of course, I got like the absolute best answers. And now I know like the best people for that in Paris. It's not always like a direct path.
Yeah. And also another thing, you said that, oh, you're a bold woman for you're already taking like the difficult step, which is like to move to another country. That's the hard part.
Huge.
Exactly. So if you did that, you can join a running club. You can just join a painting class.
You also have to be like kind to yourself, because I think as women, sometimes we think we got to have it all together. Like, okay, yeah, we moved here, and yeah, we'll give ourselves like 3 weeks to like figure out what's going on. It's not 3 weeks. It takes time. After my first year, I wrote a piece about that on Substack, and another woman answered me in a comment and said, I just want to tell you, Karen, that I experienced this myself, and I actually found that year 2 was the most difficult for me. It's going to be 2 years, maybe 3 years before you start to really feel like you're not just on a high from just being here and you don't know what's going on. And then second year around, you're like, oh, now I got to like figure myself out.
Yeah.
It's going to take a while, but then you're going to feel that your roots are establishing themselves, and you're going to feel like you can deal with these things that come up, over time. So you have to give yourself time, and don't think that you're going to figure everything out immediately. That's too hard on yourself. Any progress is progress. any progress. If you're trying to learn French and you learn one new phrase, it's progress. Be kind to yourself but get out there. Don't baby yourself too much. Don't insulate yourself, because that's the worst. If you get somewhere where there's already like a sort of innate sense of there's a little bit of isolation, and then you don't get out there and do stuff, that can be very hard.
You mentioned something that this woman said about the second year. And I read that you went through some periods of like feeling some sadness after you moved to Paris.
I still
And
do. I still do.
yeah, and one of your friends pointed out that you were grieving. I think that was such an interesting observation, especially because your life in the US was not bad at all. But living abroad means making hard choices, right?
No, my life was great. I was not like trying to get away from something in New York, or get away from myself, or get away from anything. Even if I think I have what I would consider like the best possible husband to help me. Like, he helped me so much, but still he can't do everything for me. Like, I've always had my own business since a very long time. He's always worked for the same company. So he can't even understand what that world is like. And he'll tell me like, I want to help you with this, but I don't know what to tell you, so it's like, I got to figure that out. But you know what? I had to figure it out in New York too. So I'll figure it out here. But there are times when I just feel like that, even the longing, I'm not really homesick. I have no desire to move back to the US, but I will just get this pang of something. I don't know what it is. But yeah, my best friend, Erica, she said that. She's like, you're grieving. Like, you left a lot behind. You left an idea of yourself that you thought
Yes.
would always be. If you left that story behind, you're building a new road, but you went off the path that you thought you were on. Sometimes that's hard, but that's okay too, because it's just more proof that no matter what age, you can do it. It's just you gotta. I think it's a mindset thing, giving yourself permission to live the dream that you want to live, and planning well for yourself, not just financially, not just like practically, but also planning for your mental health and your support system, giving yourself the freedom to, like, if you're gonna do it, you might as well like do it, like just live it the way you want to live it. Like,
I agree with you. So tell me 3 things that mostly like changing your life after moving to Paris.
well, number one would be the work-life balance. A shocker for me, because I was always here before, and most of the time when I was here, I'd be working like New York hours, doing what I want in the morning in Paris, and then New York hours would start in the afternoon for me here. So I was working, and so I never really had a chance to fully understand what French life-work balance is, because it's the opposite. And I learned that from my husband. And when I was first here with him, he would come home from work like 5:30, 6 o'clock, and he would be like, "Hi," and I'd be like, "Oh, hi, I'm still working over here." And he was like, "Oh, well, what do you want to do?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean? What are you going to do? Don't you have like more emails to answer or something?" And he's like, "No, I'm free. We can do whatever we want to do." And I was like, "What?" Even on weekends, I was always like taking some time to work or whatever. And he would be like sitting in the garden, like reading a book, and I would be like, what is wrong with him? Like, he works super hard. They work very hard. He works for a multi-billion-dollar, international company. But when it's time for time off, when it's time for a vacation, he has 9 weeks of paid vacation per year. You're supposed to take all of it. It's not like in the States where, yeah, you have a little bit of vacation, or you can take your vacation, but if you really take your vacation, maybe people are going to look sideways at you like you took something you weren't supposed to take. And then certainly the idea of being married, I know that's not directly related to France, but also being married to a French person who is just very, very European, and kind of just seeing life through his lens, through his family lens, through how we celebrate events. Also, there's really no holiday, like no American holidays for me here. There's no Thanksgiving. There's no 4th of July. Thanksgiving is like my favorite holiday ever. And I nobody really gets it. It's just a Thursday and everyone's at work. Other things that changed for me, well, I guess I would say that I still am in a transition in my own work identity. In the States, like I said, I had this kind of big, deep network, and I had already established like everything, and I was just kind of on top of my game. And here, even if I choose to do the same thing that I did there, it's like, I don't know French business culture in this particular domain where I have been working, so it's been like trying to understand how things work here in that respect. And it's a little bit destabilizing. So I would say that probably those are the three things. Also that I eat bread now. In the States, bread was like a fear food for me. I never ate bread. And I think there's probably a lot of American women who would say the same thing. There's not a lot of bread eating going on. And when I saw my husband and the quantity of bread that he eats, like just for breakfast, I was like, oh God, this is never going to work out. Like I would buy myself in New York a brioche. I would slice it and then I would put it in packs of 2 in the freezer and I would eat like 2 pieces of bread per month.
Oh, wow.
And so now I'm just like, I am the biggest snob of bread and the biggest butter snob. Like you can't even come.
My sister is the same. She's such a bread snob.
I don't
Oh
want
my God.
yes. Oh, I'm going to go get a baguette. Don't go to that bakery.
Karen, thank you so much
Thank you. I
for
really
this
enjoyed
amazing
this.
conversation. Oh my
Right?
God.
And
You're so bright. I had such a great time. Thank you so much for sharing everything. And if you could tell the audience where they can find you if they want to connect with you.
oh, sure. My favorite place to be and to hang out online is Substack. And that's called La Flâneuse, which flâner is a verb in French that means to wander around without a real sense of purpose, but with an open spirit and a curiosity. And that sums up a lot about who I am. So I talk a lot about my experience of moving to France and living in France, but it is really more than that. It's also just like what's going on in a woman's life at this stage. And then on YouTube and Instagram, it's just at Karen Bussen. I have a website, karenbussen.com, which is more about my business and my books and things like that if you're interested in that.
Amazing. Guys, you have to read her Substack. I spent so much time reading a lot of articles and discovering more about her
That
story.
means so much to me. I really love that.
Thanks again. I will link everything in the description and send her a message, send me a message, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.
Definitely. Thank you, Laura.
Really hope you guys enjoy this episode. Please make sure to check Karen's Substack. If you are listening this on Spotify, please follow us and also rate our show. If you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe and thumbs up. Every little thing that you can do to help us, it's truly, truly, truly appreciated. And remember, I'm always searching for new, incredible, amazing stories of women living abroad. So if you are a woman living abroad and you have an amazing story to share, please reach out to me. And if you want to receive all the episodes in your inbox every week, so you don't have to worry about all the other notifications, you can subscribe to our newsletter, and everything is gonna be linked below. Thank you so much for being here. I truly, truly, truly appreciate every single play. And until next time, bye.